Sri-Lanka relationship will continue, and Indian investors are not very perturbed by the changes that have taken place, and there is a lot of competition between India and China to have stakes in Sri Lanka, so hopefully there'll be more investments. Thank you.
Thank you, Shihara. I'm going to make a jump into towards another subject related to the infrastructure issues that were mentioned earlier by Srita, and to say that you can solve all your infrastructure problems immediately if you just bring back the black money that is to be found, we are certain, in many different places abroad, and we are all there to help you if you care to. And I must commend my good friend Ramjet Malani for being so insistent on this issue, and all his Lata, of course, right by his side, and his entire staff, and whatever we can do to help you advance on this issue, we are prepared to do, because I think it's very, very important, and it will resolve almost immediately many of your problems. Anyone? Yeah, Lata.
Hold, and are they going to be opening up and being more transparent about the names of account holders and giving information about all this?
Switzerland is currently under a lot of pressure from many sides, and its banking system is at the center of attention. And the reasons for which the Swiss banking system is at the center of attention is for different reasons. And what people in Switzerland do not always understand is when the pressure to obtain information is legitimate and when it is illegitimate. Because Switzerland recently has been under a lot of pressure of other countries who are trying to get its banking system down, not in order to get back some black money that was stolen from the country, but just in pursuit of favorizing their own banking system. So that has largely been perceived as unfair competition, and Swiss people didn't always see what the good reasons were behind these efforts. In the case of India, the situation is of course very different, because it's not what this is about, is to have a banking system win over another one. It's really about getting money stolen back. And I think the first thing that is necessary is to raise awareness about the situation in the countries where this black money can be. In all likelihood, lots is in Switzerland, but in all likelihood, lots is also in different countries, in other countries that also have banking secrecy. I'm thinking about Austria and to some extent other countries as well. So, but to the question, what are we doing? I think Swiss banks have understood that it is important to be transparent, not necessarily at any condition, just opening up, but to have procedures in place, because the rule of law is very important on both sides. And Swiss banks are getting this effort. And I think there are easements that are going to be put into place with respect to banking secrecy, so that information can be exchanged, and there are programs being set in place for that purpose. I was speaking with bankers recently, and I think they have understood the need to come clean. Of course, the deadlines that they have discussed with me might not make you happy, but they mentioned that they intended to be completely clean by 2017, which may seem far away, but considering the task at hand, it's better than nothing. And I think there is an awareness. A word that I would like to say as a Swiss, and also in defense of the Swiss banking system, I think it's very important in these kind of things, because there is always a country where the black money comes from, and there are always a country where the black money goes to. And if Switzerland puts in place all the transparency that's required to fight that in Switzerland, the risk is that the money would go somewhere else, and that in the end, no one will have won, neither India, because the black money will not be back, it will just be somewhere else, and Switzerland, because the credibility of its banking system has been affected. So I think in order for the effort to be successful, and in order for justice to be done, it's really important not to target one system or a few systems. It is very important to have a system that is globally transparent to make sure that there can be no black money taken from one country, because there is no country where it can go to.
Thank you.
I'd just like to add 2 words to that. I agree with everything that Edgar said about having a concerted worldwide approach to this. But I was involved in the St. Joseph's Minerals insider trading case, which was back in the late 70s, the early 80s. And it was a really very simple situation. There was heavy insider trading in St. Joseph Mineral stock, and it was traced to Switzerland. And it was impossible, because of bank secrecy, to get behind that and find out who were the perpetrators of what was a crime in the United States then and in most of the world at that time. And the Swiss regulators were very pragmatic about it, because we basically said to them, I remember a conversation I had with a fellow who was who I knew quite well. I won't name him, but he was Secretary General of the Swiss Banking Association. I said, this time you're the beneficiaries of this. The money is in your country because the law was violated somewhere else, but the next time it may be a Swiss person who is the victim. He said, you're right. And they waived bank secrecy just like that. So, if you make the proper case, I think you can get very far in Switzerland.
Another quick word. Bank secrecy, even if in its most strict form, which was the one of 1934, has never been unbreakable, as Jim rightly pointed out. The conditions have varied, and they are easing up, but at all points in the history of Swiss banking secrecy, when it could be shown that it was the product of a crime, that money was the product of a crime, it's always been an exception to Swiss banking secrecy. So in its original form, it's never been absolute, and it's getting changed in order to accommodate more, to make it easier to prove the existence of a crime. But even then, it was not absolute.
Thank you, Edgar. And I have to also say, from my perspective, that Switzerland should not be put here on a stand of the accused, but as Edgar so well did, things can be explained, and of course things can and should always be improved, but it is less of a problem than many people in other countries think it is. Carl, you want to?
Yeah, I can make the comment that I believe that the Swiss banking system is history, basically. That all the banking systems will be quite similar in most emerging markets and in most developed markets. And an example of that is also the Corrupt Practices Act, which was started off in the U.S., with the result that U.S. companies could not compete in all markets because the Corrupt Practices Act applied also abroad. So, for example, U.S. companies could not do deals in Ukraine, but the Italians could do deals in Ukraine because no one was as careful about that in Italy as in the U.S. But then came the UK Bribery Act, and now we have acts all throughout Europe with rules against corruption, also corruption in other countries. So I think, and that development is of course great because it creates competition. So company doing business in for example, India, must ensure that there is no corruption in a subsidiary company, or that the agent or business partner in India or any other market is free from corruption. Otherwise, the parent company board can be liable, criminally liable, for the corruption of an agent in another country if they haven't kept control over their own organization, including their business partners. So I think the development is clearly that it goes in the direction of consistency between the different countries, and that will create a more healthy competition.
Yes, very good point. But there's a question.
Just sort of changing track, I want to know the comment on the infrastructure investments, etc. So I want to know, right now, as you know, the finance minister is trying to get me sort of some feedbacks about what our FDI laws are like, what we all feel like, in terms of FDI laws, how the FEMA regime is. Is it sort of congenial for attracting foreign investment, and or sitting many miles away, do people still worry?
Absolutely. Things which are happening now after the new cabinet has been formed is really bringing a lot of confidence, I can tell you. And I just would like to, thanks for placing the question. It gives me an opportunity to place something here. When I was discussing about the infrastructure, I was trying to explain you how things has been perceived in the last years because foreign investment went back. And it is our responsibility to know so that we can make things here much more attractive and better. It doesn't mean that it needs to be done everything here first and then investors are coming. It means that it needs to be done parallel, of course. I mean, globalization is already there and India is already in the global market. So whatever has started to happen now with Make in India, I think it's fantastic. In each and every aspect of the decision, things are really moving things forward and bringing a lot of confidence. And at the same time, I always encourage us here in India, let us help this concept, Make in India, to make India a brand. That is something what we should work on.
Good final word. Thank you. So where are the drinks?
You're standing between the drinks and dinner.
Okay.
So we have given a moment to most of the speaker, but we have still three. The banking No, but three momento. So we are thinking James Duffy. I would request Lata Krishnamurthy to present the momento to Mr.
Jim Duffy.
Anyone I'd rather receive it from.
Another one?
Yeah, God.
Thank you.
So I am removing a first obstacle between you and the drink.
Excel hack.
Now I invite Yash, Mishra and Yogini to start their